Hello sports fans, Chris Durrell here. It's been a while, I haven't talked to you guys since the NASCAR pre-race show down in Arizona for the Phoenix race, as well as I talked to you on Monday looking at the golf preview for over at RotoPros as well with Dane. Since then, there has been absolutely no sports. The sports world, pretty much the whole world in general, has been shut down. So unless you've been living under a rock, COVID-19 pandemic going on, stay home, everyone. Let's get through this, flatten that curve. But back to sports, esports, we'll say. Since I got home, I've dove right headfirst into the League of Legends pool. Before this whole thing went down, I knew nothing about it besides it was a video game. People played it competitively. I knew it was on DraftKings and FanDuel, just never really had the time with 6 other sports on the go. But with all this time in my hands, I have decided to kind of dive into it. I started out learning a little bit about the game, then kind of applied that to fantasy sports, and then, as I usually do, created a sheet, as you see here. So what we're going to do here in this video, I just kind of want to go over not only my sheet tutorial and how to use it and how I interpret the stats that are in there, where I get the stats from, what they mean, but I also want to give you some strategy, maybe a little bit about League of Legends if you're new to it like I was jumping in. Literally the first place I started was before even fantasy or how scoring worked. I just watched a few matches, learned about the video game, how it works. So I'm going to start there. I'm just going to bring up this picture here. This is the map. They use the same map every single time. So what you've got here is you've got the blue Nexus, which blue home base, red home base, you've got the top lane, you got the mid lane, and you got the bottom lane, and then you got jungles kind of in the middle of those lanes as well. So obviously got the red team and the blue team every time. The inhibitors, what they are, there's one for every lane for each team. Those, if a red inhibitor is taken out, blue minions will become super minions and kind of take control of that mid lane. That's what the inhibitors are for. So once those start going down, you're going to see a lot of super minions. That usually isn't until the end of the game. So it's 5-on-5. You got 5 players on each team. They're all different characters. They can choose between, I think there's hundreds now, so they have a little bit of a draft. That doesn't affect us for DFS, but they choose their players, and then they start. So you got the top laner is going to go up top, the mid laner in the middle, the bottom lane consists of an ADC, which is an AD carry, and a support player, and then you've got a jungler who kind of sits in here and patrols the jungles, helps out the top lane and the mid lane and the bottom lane, depending on how the game transpires. So really the goal of the game is to get to the other team's base and destroy their nexus before they obviously come down and destroy yours. So that's kind of the gist of the game and how it works. These games usually last about 30 to 40 minutes. They get kills and assists, obviously, so there is a scoring aspect to it. We're going to jump right into that. So for fantasy scoring, the other thing with this map here before we go forward is there is 6 turrets for each team, 2 in each lane on their side of the map. Those are points as well. Those will fire, obviously protect your side when it is a champion, which there's 5 champions, 5 players versus 5 players, and those are called your champions. Minions are the little guys that come out and follow each player and kind of do little bits of damage. When those minions are close to the turret will focus on the minions first, and then will gear towards the champion. So you'll see a lot of guys when they try and go and get that turret out, will wait for their minions to get up there and then apply that damage. So looking at the fantasy scoring side of it, now that we've kind of looked at the map and how the game sort of works, so on draft, both sites actually are the same. Kills give you 3 points, so when a champion gets a kill on another champion, not minions, those don't count. When the champion gets a kill on a champion, they're going to get 3 points. An assist, so whoever's in that area while that battle is going on and gets a kill, everyone in that area gets an assist. -1 for a death. Creep score is calculated just by, like, on the map throughout the game. You're going to be killing other teams' minions, you're going to be knocking down towers, you're going to be killing little objectives throughout the map. That's going to earn you gold for your team, and as that player gets gold, that's called a creep score. So as that goes up, that is multiplied by 0.02 points. And then in the leagues that are out there, there's the LPL, which is in China, there's the LCK, which is in Korea, there's the LEC, which is Europe, and then there's the LCS, which is North America. Those are the 4 leagues that we're running right now in terms of DFS, the ones that I'm making the sheet for. The big difference between them is the LPL and the LCK in China and Korea. They run best of 3 matches, so they obviously they're playing best of 3, so these points go down in each game. If a game is completed, if a team shuts out another team, each player on the team that shuts out that team and gets the win gets an additional 20 points, while the team gets 15-point bonus there as well. So keep that in mind. The LCS North America and the LEC for Europe they just play one game, so the scoring's a little bit lower in those leagues. And the LCS and LEC only run on weekends, while the LPL and LCK generally is every single night. And they have now, DraftKings has now combined those two leagues to make, instead of 2 or 3 game slates, to make a 6-game slate almost every night. So we've got that there as well. And we're going to get into those leagues comparisons because they do run on the same slate. I'm going to get into that here in a little bit, just kind of comparing the two. So keep that in mind as well. So now that we kind of know the fantasy scoring, we kind of know how the game works. We've got the positions on, when we're looking at DraftKings here, the positions we are looking at to fill, we've got the captain spot, which is just they are getting 1.5 times the points and they're 1.5 times the price. So generally you want to put your top player that projected on the slate in there. So we've got a top laner, a jungler, a mid, an AD carry, a support, and then the team position. Generally, the team position has the least amount of variance team by team. It's usually a place from a strategy perspective where I will punt. The two most important positions in terms of scoring, they get the most kills, is, we'll go back to the map here, the mid laner and the AD carry. So the mid laner is going to be coming through here, is going to be in a lot of battles, usually going to get lots of kills. Like I said, same with the AD carry down here with the support. The support player usually, correlates very closely with that AD carry. He's following him. They kind of travel together on the map. So he's going to pick up a lot of, generally, the highest assist rates in the game are going to be with that support. So pairing those two together makes a lot of sense. The other strategy perspective that we use in League of Legends that's worked, it's something I read about and then something I've tested, is looking to stack teams. And you want players on winning teams. They're getting those little bit of bonuses. Generally, they're getting a heck of a lot more kills out there as well. So the correlation there is very high. So we have 7 positions here. We want to run generally a 4-3 stack. So 4 from one team, 3 from the other. And if possible, we want to get an ADC or a mid in that captain spot. That probably more for GPP. The upside for the mid and the ADC is just a heck of a lot higher when you start breaking down the points per position, the kills per game, comparing them across all positions. Those two positions are by far the highest upside. For cash games, it can be a little bit different. I generally don't mind, like, out of these 6 games, what I'll do is I'll break down my top 4 or 5 teams, and then I will break it down and start putting combinations of 4-3 stacks together until I can get a lineup to work where I can get a mid or an ADC up top. So I'll generally start with my favorite or top favorite team. I'll put 4 of those players in, and I'll kind of mix that around and try and get a 4-3 as much as I can. For cash games, like I was saying, if I take my top team, if I can't make it work where I can get a mid or an ADC and the captain where I'm very comfortable, what I'll do is I'll take my top team. So I haven't really broke down this slate a whole bunch yet, but let's just go and look at Team WE. If I can't get a lineup that I'm comfortable with fitting my top 2 of my top 3 teams in a lineup together, I will turn to making my captain maybe a jungler or a top. They generally have pretty high floors with their assist rates, as well as some of them get a lot of kills. Like you can see here, Bishang averages 66.2 DraftKings points per game. He's got quite a few, 20 plus assists in 3 straight matches here. Those all went to 3 games, which is, some teams go to 3 games more than others, obviously, so you can get some extra points there. So he's generally got a very high floor. So he's a player I would definitely consider putting up top in the captain spot. Gives you a little bit of salary relief so that you could go down now and easily get Team WE's ADC and WE in there, and still another combination of your top 3 teams. So that's just an example of lineup construction that I go at. So with a few strategy things kind of under the belt, like I said, 4-3 is huge. If you can't get a 4-3 and you still want to get a mid ADC up top, something you can also do is run, say, like a 4-2-1, so 4 from your top team, 2 from your secondary team, and then a one-off punt, which would usually be like a support or the team position. Those are generally the lowest variance between from a player-to-player basis at looking at the position, comparing the positions. So that's a little bit of strategy there. The next thing I want to do is just kind of go through my sheet and show you how I use it every day. So once I get it all updated, I start with the lineup page. It's number 1. And it kind of gives you a comparison of who's facing who. There is no home team versus away team. They're playing remotely, so there's, it's not like a home arena or home field advantage or anything like that. And then I've got stats for each team. So first thing you're going to see is the team's record. You're going to see, now this is their match record. Remember I said this is a best of 3s. So this is their best of 3 match record on the season. And then this is their actual game. So how many games they've played inside those 12 matches. They've played that many games. So keep that in mind when you're looking at that. This is their game win percentage here. So as you can see, Africa, 50% win rate versus 25% win rate for APK. Africa's got a better record overall. It shows you the average game length for each team, kills per game, kill to death ratio for the team, so 0.88 to 0.62, and then I've calculated a differential, so a 0.26 kill to death differential for Africa over APK. Gold per minute differential. Now I found these next 3 stats: gold, towers, and dragons. I'm going to refer back to the map here for a minute. I talked about towers, so each team has 6, so there's points obviously for knocking those down. So that correlates very highly from a team. Going back to fantasy scoring, I didn't talk about the teams. So turrets, towers give you 1 point, dragons give you 2 points, Baron Dragons or Baron Nasher gives you 3 points. First kill of the round gives the team position 2 points. A win gives the team 2. A win in under 30 minutes gives them 2. And then, like I mentioned, the GNP finishing with a shutout gives the team an additional 15 points. So the Barons show up later in the game. The Dragons show up here and here, 1 for each team. It's not even 1 for each team because one team can go in and get both of those Dragons as they show up. And they show up in after a certain amount of time, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact timing, but I believe it's maybe every 10 minutes something else shows up. So if you kill a dragon, another one's going to show up in 10 minutes, and then near the end of the game, I believe at the 30-minute mark, a Baron Nasher shows up. And by killing those dragons, it gives your team extra damage for a certain amount of time as well, so it's really huge grabbing those, as well as the gold count that you're going to get from them as well. So you're going to see teams team up and prepare themselves for when that clock hits and that timer hits and those dragons show up, that they're going to try and get in there and get those. And that's where you're going to see a lot of the battles as well if you are watching some of these games live. And I do suggest doing that because I still didn't get it over the first week. Putting the cheat sheet together, reading up on all this stuff didn't really make a lot of sense until I started watching some of these matches. Keep in mind the LPL and LCK for us in North America pretty much happens in the middle of the night, so unless you're staying up all night, you're probably not going to see a lot of matches. So you can go back and see the archives, and you can do that. The site that I use for this is the watch.lolesports.com site. So it shows you the schedule. You can click on your league over here. You can go over to the watch here, and you can go back and look at a game. So this is from last night / today. You can go back and watch those games. Just gives you a real good perspective of how things actually work once they're inside the game and they're playing. You can see the strategies going on. And generally, watching a sport is going to help you in the fantasy world as well. So I have that for every team. Towers per game, dragons per game, team win odds, and then we've got a kill spread. So this is map 1. So on the very first map, on the best of 3, this is pretty much like a spread. Like the Patriots are minus 7.5 point favorites. Same kind of thing. Africa is minus 5.5 kill favorite versus APK in that map 1. And then we've got the kill total in map 1 there as well. For some reason right now, LCK on the site that I'm using to bring odds in isn't showing the over-unders. As you can see, I'm getting pretty good at just knowing what teams are in what league now after 15, 16 days. LGD and WE are in the LPL. These Africa and APK are in the LCK. So until that gets fixed, you're just not going to see a kills over-under there. And then below that is going to be projected starting lineups for these teams, which is going to be huge, as well as one of the trickiest parts of playing LOL esports here as well. So what I do is I go back and I look at past matches. Most teams aren't going to be changing their lineups a whole bunch, so those projected lineups are going to be pretty close. I put those in at the start of each day, and then we see their pricing, and this is just a quick comparison team by team. Kill, death, and assist ratio I look at, comparing matchups for one another. So as you can see, Kin is a 2.7, Ixu is a 1.6, which gives Kin back on this side a differential versus opponent of 1.1. So the higher, obviously, the better. And then we show the base projection, which I've got in here. I'm going to talk about projection here in a minute. And then we've got the player ranking. So I kind of run, as I'm doing this, I'm kind of testing two formulas right now. It's more of a player ranking, which kind of coincides with my modeling that I use for NASCAR, pitchers for baseball, as well as PGA sheet. And then I've got a base projection sheet, which is just a little bit more of something I'm working on to get more close to an actual projection that we can use in a upcoming lineup optimizer that I'm working on as well. So that's kind of where the base projection is coming from, and it is based on, when you're looking at the base projection, it doesn't take into account the bonuses that you get. So it's just looking at your base base stats, kills, deaths, assists, creep score, that sort of thing. And then I'm kind of factoring in, as of now, which is April 1st, I'm now factoring in Vegas into that projection as well. And then I've got that for every single team. So you can kind of scroll through, you can look at the team. So the first thing I do on a given day is look at this page, like I said, and I'm going to pick out my projected winner, first of all, from each game. So those are going to be so this is a 6-game slate. So I'm going to first narrow my teams down to 6, and then I'm going to start digging into the player-to-player matchups. Start looking at maybe, kind of going through DraftKings and looking at some box scores, how players have been doing recently versus their season stats, and start developing which teams out of those 6, maybe my top 3-4 teams. Then I start ranking those teams as well, and then I start digging into the players. And to help you with picking out teams, you can also use this team tab here. Just kind of looking at it more in a linear form versus a matchup. Now this one shows the players on here, this one does not. So this one's got a model here as well to rank the teams. I will be having those team rankings on this page eventually. They will get there, but for now you can look here. And pretty much what I'm doing with this model is just looking at odds, fantasy points per game on the season, win rate, kills per game for the team as a total, kills plus opponent deaths. So that's new to the sheet. If you've been paying attention for the last 2 weeks, this is something that is new yesterday. So I look at how many kills per game Afrika gets, plus how many deaths per game APK Prince takes, and then I combine those two together. Obviously, the higher number is going to be the better matchup. So that's one thing I'm looking at. Then I look at gold per minute differential. So that is the differential between one team versus another. Because that one thing I've found here in terms of winning teams that correlates very highly is your gold, your dragons, and your towers. Teams that are very high in those stats are the teams that are normally at the top of the standings. So then I just weigh that all together, kind of like I do in the golf sheet, if you're familiar with that, or the NASCAR sheet. So if you want to create your own copy, you definitely can. Just go up to File, create your own or make a copy, name it whatever you'd like, click OK. Then the whole sheet's going to become editable for you. So you can go in and you can start changing these numbers, add up to 100, and then it's going to spit out an overall rank, which again is over here. You're not going to see this every single day. I like to hide it for those that are just kind of going to go off. I don't want to confuse anyone with that model, but if you are creating your own sheets, what you're going to see every single day is going to look like this. All you're going to want to do is come up to this arrow up here, and it's going to expand that model. So you can go ahead and create your own copy, expand that model, and then start playing around with the numbers if you'd like. So then we'll go to all players. Once we got the teams that we want to narrow down, I want to start looking at the players, and this is the main page where the projection comes from. So what you're going to see here is every player on the slate, their position, what team, their opponent, the opponent rank. That is something new that I have been working on, and that comes from the Team Stats tab. And all I'm looking at is like deaths per game, towers given up, dragon percentage, things like that, and coming up kind of like opponent versus position type ranking, defense versus position type stuff, comparing to other sports. So that's one thing I'm looking at. High numbers are going to be good. That means the opposition is bad, versus low numbers like 4. That means KT is actually a pretty good defense in terms. So it's just another way to look at the matchup. Maybe when you're comparing players, who's got the easier matchup. Something I'm working on. Everything is fluid here. This is all brand new to me. I'm in the first month of this sport. Like in terms of baseball, PGA, other sports like that, I've got 5 years in terms of my sheets. So if you do have suggestions, things that you think maybe should be done differently, definitely throw me an email, hit me up on Twitter, send that out to me, and I'll definitely make adjustments here. I'm pretty much open to everything. So then we've got odds of each player, each team, their DK salary. When it comes to LEC and LCS, that is on FanDuel. FanDuel only carries those two leagues, so you'll see FanDuel pricing and DK point or FanDuel points per game there as well. So then we get into the stats. We've got games played, each player's damage percentage. So that's each player's damage percentage of their own team's damage. So keep that in mind. This kind of gives you a look. Before I go further with that, we start looking at the damage percentage of the 5 players that are going to start here for APK. As you can see, like I talked about mid and ADC being very important positions, this is key because as you can see here, they make up 57.7% of the total team damage. Just those 2 players in those 2 positions. You're going to see that trend pretty much through every single team. Now, as you can see here with Africa, their second ranked player in terms of damage percentage on the team is actually Kin, who's a top. So there is an example. If you're going to use Africa, using top as a captain spot, using Kin as a top in the captain spot makes a lot of sense on that team because he is number 2, is one of the few teams where the second ranked player is going to be someone other than an ADC or a mid. So keep that in mind as well. So then we've got win rate for that player. So every game that player's in, what is the rate at which that team wins? Kills per game, how many kills they get per game, not per match, so that's per game. So if there's 3 games, we're figuring out how many kills they got per game across those 3 games or 2 games if it was a shutout. Everything is by per game so that we can compare all 4 leagues against each other versus just LCK and LPL. Assists per game, deaths per game, KDA, so it's combining all 3 of those together. Highest number is obviously better in terms of KDA. CSM, that is just your creep score per minute. And then we've got the projection side of it. So what I've done here with the projections is just pretty much made a formula. The formulas aren't in here. They're not going to be in the daily sheets. If you maybe want to work with a sheet and maybe mess around with your base projection, you definitely can. I've got a Vegas multiplier that I've got applied to kills, assists, and creep score. So obviously the higher the odds to win for that team for each player, they're going to get a boost in their projection. So as you can see, minus 34 favorites for ADD and Billy Gaming versus Rogue today. So the kills per game on the season is 3.0 for ADD. Today we're projected at 3.5 kills per game. Assists 8.3 on the season, 9.6 assists per game projection for today. So that's where the base projection comes from. It factors in kills, assists, deaths, and creep score, and then it puts it into a base projection. That is all, again, based off of a calculation of I did on average 2.5 games. I was going to do 2, but not every game goes a shutout. I was going to do 3, not every game goes to 3 games. So I just kind of settled with 2.5 in the middle. Factored Vegas into that. And like I said, this doesn't include any bonuses. So if you're looking at, let's just go to ADD at the top. He's averaging 44 points per game on the season. That sometimes for a lot of these players, so that's only a 2-game sample size here. One game was 12, the other one was 75. So pretty big wide range of outcomes there for ADD. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the projection. Today I've got him at 80.55. That's because they're a pretty big favorite, projected to win. I have him getting a little bit closer to the game where they beat WE 2-1. Where he got 7 kills, 23 assists, 3 deaths, and a 365 creep score. He got those bonuses in there as well. Like I said, everything is pretty fluid here. Things are going to be changing quite a bit on a day-to-day basis as I test things out, as the results come in, as the sample sizes start getting bigger on this whole thing. So keep that in mind. So this is the main page where I'm looking at all players combined against each other. Again, there's a player model over here. If you create your own copy, you can adjust it. This is what I've got right now. I ended up taking out kills assists, and creep score because of the base projection that I've now got factored in, and I put a 30% weight on that. So if you're looking and wondering why I took out weight on creep score, assists, and kills, it's because all three of those things are actually factored in with Vegas odds into the projection side here. So we've got a rank of 1 to however many players are on the slate. That rank reflects here. That's the rank that you're going to see here, and that's the base projection that you see here on that page as well. So then I go through each individual position. If you want to go through that, keep in mind that the player ranks are overall ranks versus ranks at the position, and that will reflect, like here you're looking at jungler. Your top ranked jungler right today is going to be Bishang. He's the 12th overall ranked player, so keep that in mind. We've got all the same stats, the same projections, the same base projection that you see on the all players tab, and then we go by position. Again, we've got the fantasy scoring at the end. I will be adding an optimizer within the next couple, I would say probably within the next 2 weeks. It may be past the beta testing stage and something that I can add to the sheet. It's going to be very, very simple to start with. It's going to be like a one lineup thing. It'll expand as time goes on, kind of with all the stuff in my sheets. Something else I want to add is with this base projection, as I get it closer, I'm going to have like a combined base projection for the entire starting lineup, so you can kind of really start comparing team by team. I will add that to the team page here as well. Like it'll just say like combined base projection for the team, and this page will be very good for that, because then you can start going ahead and comparing. Okay, top Esports is number 2 in my rankings, number 1 is Team WE. What is their combined projection of their entire team? So you can kind of see that and decide, maybe there's a little bit more value if Team WE is $200 cheaper, they're ranked higher, their base projection is going to be combined higher than top Esports. Bang, I want to get Team WE in my lineup 100%. So it's just a bunch of stuff on here, a bunch of different stats that you can compare. Like I said, I start every day by looking at the lineup page and the team tab, and narrowing it down to my top 6 teams, and then narrowing that down even further once I dig into the stats a little bit more, into the matchups a little bit more, narrow it down to my top 3 to 4 teams on these 6-game slates, and then I will start putting combinations together in my lineup construction to try and get 4-3 stacks, and I will try and use mid and ADC as my captain. If I cannot do that, trying to get 2 of my top 3 teams combined together, what I will do is turn to like a top or a jungler who can possibly fit into that captain spot, give us some salary relief, as well as staying with the high floor. That is mostly a strategy I will try for cash games. So that's kind of a little bit about the sheet. That's a little bit about strategy, a little bit about the game in itself. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up. I'm covering this sport for 3 different places currently. I'm covering it for rotopros.com, dailyfantasysportsrankings.com. I've still got all these sheets, articles, and information coming out on my Patreon page as well. That's patreon.com/Jagerbombs. And also hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. And in any of those chats, we've got Slack chat as well as a DFSR chat on there as well. So if you've got any questions, hit me up. We can definitely discuss this. There's going to be more videos coming, some of them with picks, some of them going over a little bit more advanced strategy, maybe on multi-entering. Whatever you guys want to see, hit me up, and I will do a video on it going over the sheet. Like I said, if there's things you want to add, hit me up there too. Thanks for watching the video. Let's get through this together. Stay at home, people, and we'll have sports back before you know it. Hopefully, summertime, we are full blast. Like and subscribe to the video, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.